border security, and border security is national security. This president has made clear that his primary duty to all of us in this country, Jesse, is to keep us safe. And we see what happens when you have a porous border. You have poison like fentanyl and heroin and cocaine pouring over. You have people trying to come here illegally. You have people being promised by coyotes and others that they've paid thousands of dollars to, maybe more, promises that cannot be delivered upon. And look what's happened to many of those folks trying to come here. And this is a president who knows that we as a nation have been spending billions of dollars over decades helping other nations protect their own sovereign borders. It's high time we do it here.
That's a great point.
He also knows that there were 26 Democrats in the Senate who voted for the Secure Fences Act in 2006. And they were none other, let me just highlight a few for you, Senator Joe Biden, Senator Barack Obama, Senator Chuck Schumer, and Senator ding, 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 Hillary Clinton. So what's happened on the border since the 2006 Secure Fences Act was voted on? It got worse. It's more porous.
Well, it's interesting. Since they started building any sort of fencing, wherever they built it, immigration through that area halted, it funnels the foot traffic of the illegals to softer points. So wherever the walls are, the walls work. Let me show you some sound of how the people in the media are framing the border security issue. Listen to this.
The president went to the heart of what I call his brown menace theory. These migrants, they're dirty people. They bring disease.
This border wall thing is about controlling the browning of America.
Donald Trump is fixated on the southern border, as he was the day that he announced this campaign. It is not about securing the borders. It is about xenophobic, racist, bigoted beliefs.
So the media is racializing border security. And if you look at all of the polls, a majority of Americans, they want border security. They're against sanctuary cities. They're anti-caravan. But then when you hear people say, oh, you want border security, you must be racist. Do you think that's backfiring on the left?
It does backfire because people are very focused on what the issue at hand here truly is. And it's whether or not you want a Customs and Border Patrol. There's brave men and women at the border who say they need enhancements, they need better security, they need electronic enhancements, they need fences, they need walls, whether they're concrete or not. They need border security. They're telling us they're not cosseted on some and protected on some fancy TV set in Washington or New York, pontificating. They are actually doing the job to keep us all safe at the border.
This is a pretty nice set, I have to admit.
There you go. Well, I wasn't talking about you, but yes, it is. And by the way, this is a pretty nice perch, too. Well, I read it. But CPB, ICE, all those dum-dums who want to abolish ICE. Do you know what ICE did just last year? They surveilled enough fentanyl to have killed every man, woman, and child in this country. They're stopping the human smugglers, the child smugglers, the drug smugglers, and folks who are coming over here with criminal records. Now, the mainstream media want us all to believe, Jesse, that the president thinks everybody who wants to come here is a bad person. No, he doesn't. In fact, the president says constantly he wants people to come here, but come here legally. Add to the list of the 33 million people who have come to this country, immigrated here legally over the years because we're so generous and welcoming. But if anyone is smuggling a child, if anyone is smuggling drugs, if people are coming here for nefarious reasons, if they're MS-13 gang members, you know that number's not zero, not even close to zero. So people ought to get off their high horses and focus on what this is, border security as national security.
Right. All right, I want to switch gears to Nancy Pelosi. I guess your new compadre over there, you're going to have to be dealing with her quite a lot in the next 2 years, at the most, I would say. This is what she did the other day. She actually scolded the media. Listen to this scolding.
I wish that the press would spend a lot more time on what we need to do here to meet the needs of the American people instead of morning, noon, and night allegations against the president. I think you'd have more viewers or readers if it would address concerns that people have rather than just this ongoing coverage of what's current with the president from one day to the next.
That is remarkable.
Is Nancy stealing your job, Kellyanne? I mean, she sounds exactly like a Republican.
She does, and indeed she sounds like me, who's always talking about not biased coverage, because that's easy to see, right, where you want to see it, but incomplete coverage. We're not having policy discussions. I tried to have some this week on a competitor network, doesn't do as well as your network, because I like to get the president's message out to different audiences, and just get shut down and constantly interrupted when I try to talk about policy. It's that you're deflecting, diverting, pivoting. No. I actually want people to have news they can use. Let's make sure our veterans know what's available to them. Let's make sure workforce development measures and all these opportunities people have to get one of those 7 million Trump-created jobs, that they know about it, that they understand what it means to be one of the 30 million Americans that still doesn't have health insurance 8.5 years after Obamacare was passed. We want people to have news they can use, right, not everybody's opinion, which of course is not news. But when Pelosi says that, she sounds a lot like Jesse. Also, those Democrats are saying, no, we're not talking about indictment, impeachment. No. We're going to work on infrastructure. Okay, I'm going to hold them to it. Impeachment? No. Out. Infrastructure in. Great. Let's work. We have a builder here in the White House. Let's work on a big project.
Yeah, let's work together.
Let's do it together. Let's create those jobs and build stuff and repair the dams and the bridges and the water mains that break and everything else.
Yeah, water mains breaking all over New York City, but I blame Bill de Blasio for that.
Why not?
Someone else that's been making a lot of sense on the left. I mean, I can't even believe it. Something's happening here. Claire McCaskill had a little advice for the Democratic Party. Sounds similar. Let's listen.
One of the mistakes that we make as a party is spending too much time talking about the gender thing. We are a party of all kinds of people. And, white men, white working class men have traditionally been a huge part of our party. We have lost a lot of them. And one of those reasons is we've had a tendency to talk maybe too much about gender.
Oh, so Claire's saying Democrats stop playing the gender card. Kellyanne, 30 seconds, all yours.
They usually only discover this, Jesse, after they lose.
Right. I'm sure it's a coincidence.
Part of why she lost, because she's running for re-election in Missouri, but amidst a Democratic Party that's veering so far to the left, they can't even reach the middle if they stretch their arms out. Also, I'll remind you that Senator McCaskill told your colleague Bret Baier in an interview on Fox News on October 29th, she thought the president should use every tool at his disposal to try to secure that border. She was 100% with him. She backs him up. That was to try to mollify many of those Trump voters. Yeah. In her state, a state he carried by 19 points, and she just lost. But she lost not just because she's wrong on the issues, but because people look up and they see Democrat now, and they know that you're for socialized medicine. And she, of course, voted against Brett Kavanaugh and lost her seat also. But also she said, look, the president tapped into the frustration and anger of many voters who feel like their work is not being dignified. In her state of Missouri, manufacturers, if there are miners, construction, those jobs are way up, as is the confidence levels.
All right, Kellyanne, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Jesse. Merry Christmas. God bless.
Have a good one.
Take care.
All right, Michael Cohen, the president's former attorney, breaking his silence after being sentenced to 3 years in prison, claiming he was only acting at the direction of Mr. Trump.
Nothing at the Trump Organization was ever done unless it was run through Mr. Trump. He directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters. The man doesn't tell the truth, and it's sad that I should take responsibility for his dirty deeds.
Now, the president says otherwise.
I never directed him to do anything wrong. Whatever he did on his own. He's a lawyer. A lawyer who represents a client is supposed to do the right thing. That's why you pay them a lot of money.
Hans von Spakovsky is a senior legal fellow at Heritage Foundation and a former Department of Justice official under President George W. Bush. He believes Cohen did not violate campaign finance laws, and neither did the president. He joins me now. Hans, this is a really hot article. Rudy's been forwarding it. The president's been waving it around in the air. I've been talking about it on the 5 all week. I claim all the credit. Besides you, of course, for writing it. In simple terms, because we're going to be talking about this probably for the next 2 years, was this payment to Stormy Daniels illegal before the election? You say the Federal Election Commission, the Federal Election Campaign Act would say no, it's perfectly legal.
Yeah, and the reason is this. You can't use campaign funds to pay personal or business expenses. You can only use campaign funds to pay campaign-related expenses. Right. And the FEC has said in the past that this kind of a payment, a hush money payment, That's a personal expense. That's not related to your campaign.
And it was actually paid for by Trump, not the campaign.
No, that's right. And the reason we know that the FEC would not consider this to be a campaign-related expense, and that's important because if it's not, then all the rules and regulations in federal law don't apply. But remember, the Justice Department tried to actually make this same argument once before when they prosecuted or tried to prosecute John Edwards.
Right.
Their actual contributors were making payments to his mistress who was working for the campaign.
Right.
A jury didn't buy it, but the FEC also didn't. They audited the Edwards campaign and said, these are not campaign-related expenses.
Right. Now, so let's just put this into perspective now. If you're in Congress, and we know Congress has this slush fund, which pays out sexual harassment, sexual misconduct settlements that, you know, require people to hush up afterwards. They run for re-election every 2 years. I mean, it's in the window of a campaign, of course. Millions of dollars is going out. That's taxpayer money. That's not being reported on FEC filings. So what's the difference?
No. No, in fact, if you take to the extreme this weird theory that the U.S. Attorney in New York has, all these members of Congress are using taxpayer funds to pay for campaign-related expenses, which I think is very problematic.
I mean, if you just give that argument right there, it's game over. I just don't see how people, because everybody on the left is saying, oh, you know what? He pled to a campaign finance violation. That's it. The president's now on the hook, and let's impeach. You're saying you don't see any evidence in the case histories and these acts. I mean, you have codes here you cite, and I want everybody to read this article by Hans. Trump's ex-lawyer didn't violate campaign finance laws, and neither did the president. It's all over the internet. You can't even spend money. I mean, what if you got a haircut before the election? I mean, out of your personal wallet. I mean, is that a campaign expense if you don't report it?
Well, look, under that theory, it is. I mean, I'll give you another quick example. Look, if you don't pay the mortgage payments on your house and a bank forecloses in the middle of your campaign, obviously that's going to hurt your reputation and may influence the outcome of the election. But that's still not a campaign-related expense. That's something you have to pay out of your own funds. You can't use campaign money to do it. And by the way, if, in fact, a candidate were to use campaign funds to pay off, for example, a mistress, I can guarantee you that FEC would be going after them saying, you use campaign funds for personal expenses.
Right. All right, Hans, there it is. I suggest every Democrat in the country read this article. We can all calm down. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up, Lara Trump getting ready for her first splash into Watters World. And speaking of Watters World, what was Hillary's greatest accomplishment as Secretary of State? About his role in the Russia investigation. Recently, Comey admitted he personally made the decision to send agents to the White House to interview Mike Flynn, which eventually led to charges against the former national security advisor.
Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. So if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought it's early enough. Let's just send a couple guys over.
Here to react, Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy and Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who's going to question Comey on Monday. I mean, Matt, this guy's basically saying he took advantage of the disorganization of the Trump White House and really went after and kind of set up Mike Flynn. If this is about Russia, why isn't he going after Russians? Why is he trying to tee up Americans?
Well, thanks for having me on, Jesse, though I will say I think this is the first time I've been the third most handsome person on any Fox broadcast with you and Duffy.
Thank you. You know what? The Duffy takes the cake, though. I mean, look at that hair.
He's probably going to fire his comm staff for putting him on with us. But when it comes to Comey, I mean, you don't typically use the language "something I got away with" to describe something that is proper and good. Like, you never go home and say, "Hey, I got away with making it home before curfew." You know what I mean? You usually are getting away with things that are not right or not proper. And this will be the second time we bring Comey in, so it'll be like deja vu, but with all of the amnesia. It's kind of like when you combine deja vu with amnesia. Maybe he'll forget all of the things that he thought he was expected to tell us. I don't know,
it's amazing. He said, "I don't know, I don't remember, I forget," so many times. And for someone that basically investigated both presidential candidates at the same time, within a year of each other, and when you ask him a question about it, he doesn't know, Congressman Duffy. I thought he was supposed to be the smartest guy in the room with the most integrity.
Yeah, allegedly he's a guy who has a photographic memory as well. But here, there's only one of two choices. Either this is the biggest investigation that he has in his tenure as the FBI. He's going to investigate a presidential candidate, Donald Trump, and then the president, Donald Trump. Yeah. And here he comes to Congress, and basically he's a bumbling idiot, doesn't know anything that happened. And so we conclude one of two things. One, either he's stupid or he's lying to Congress. But you can't come in and say, "I don't recall or know any of the facts around the largest investigation that I've ever done in my tenure as the FBI director." It's laughable.
Right. And now we're hearing, Congressman Gates, about these after-action reports that were written about the Flynn interview. They were written 6 months after the fact, which is extremely fishy. And we already know that they went in there without a lawyer present for Flynn. They tried to kind of coax him and kind of keep him relaxed and keep him loose. And they had what he said to the Russian ambassador printed out. He didn't contradict anything. They never thought he was lying. How's he facing any time at this point? I don't get it.
I think President Trump should pardon Michael Flynn because he's not being called to account for any bad actions he committed with malice. It's largely a consequence of not remembering something or perhaps stating something in a different context. Even Comey said that there was no indicia of lying when Flynn originally met with these folks. Now, Jesse, compare that to Hillary Clinton, who had 9 lawyers present. Several of her lawyers that were present were actually fact witnesses that should not have been there. So for Hillary Clinton, they roll out the red carpet. They paved the yellow brick road to no consequence. But yet with Michael Flynn, someone who didn't even indicate that he was lying, according to James Comey, he's facing serious consequences. And I think the president could do right for justice by pardoning Michael Flynn.
All right, I'm glad you brought up the Clinton investigation. One second. I'm glad you brought that up, Congressman Duffy, because I want to ask you about this. We remember the time when everybody was trying to find these Page Strzok emails and texts, and there was like this 6-month gap where they couldn't find them at a very critical stage of the investigation. Well, finally, the, I guess, Inspector General issued a report and said, you know what? We lost them. When they turned out one device they couldn't find. The other couple devices they said were wiped clean. I think Mueller might have wiped one. The FBI wiped the other. Is that standard procedure?
No, of course it's not standard procedure. They should have retained those cell phones and the records of the text between Strzok and Page. But they didn't. But I think what you see, Jesse, is an utter disregard and respect for the process and the law, number one. But number two, I think the FBI had such contempt for Donald Trump winning this election, which is basically a contempt for the American people who elected him.
Good point.
They were willing to twist and contort the laws to actually try to prosecute him and implement that insurance plan to make sure that the electorate didn't have its way, that the FBI and the liberal progressive elites got their way to take Donald Trump out. And so whether it's the Russia investigation, whether it's collusion or campaign finance laws, they won't stop not looking for the truth. They won't stop until they take out Donald Trump.
And Congressman Gates, we're just hearing about Hillary. She said under oath that she did the email server for convenience, and she also blamed her husband, Bill Clinton. Wouldn't be the first time she blamed her husband for trouble. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, you don't typically bleach something inadvertently. With Hillary Clinton,
oops, I bleached it.
That's not something that you typically do with technology. And so I think that with Hillary Clinton, you have someone who just fundamentally believed that the rules didn't apply to her, and you can understand why. For the Clintons, for decades, they've been able to evade consequence and have things kind of tilt in their favor. And it really is unfortunate that we didn't do more in this Congress to drill down, but I think there's more to come. Michael Horowitz is going to give additional reports on the media's influence and the FBI leaking stories and getting improper benefits as a result. So I think we'll see even more about how we can drain the swamp and get rid of some of the deep state entities that are working against our president.
All right, that sounds pretty juicy. All right, guys, I got to run. The three best-looking guys on television right now. I have to say goodbye.
You have the best hair, Jesse.
We'll see you later. Thank you very much. Coming up, Laura Trump making her Watters World debut. And later, our body language expert analyzes the Trump-Pelosi-Schumer meeting. Wait till you hear what she has to say.
America's News Headquarters, I'm Anita Vogel. President Trump addressing reporters a short time ago at the White House, where the congressional ball was held. The president praising Friday's Obamacare ruling. A federal judge in Texas struck down the law, calling it unconstitutional on the eve of the sign-up deadline for 2019 coverage. Here's President Trump from earlier tonight.
I believe we're going to get really good health care. Exciting things happened over the last 24 hours. If the Republicans and the Democrats get together, we are going to end up with incredible health care, which is the way it should have been from day one. And it's going to happen. It now has a chance to happen.
Democrats have pledged to fight the ruling. This means the legal battle is likely headed to the Supreme Court yet again. I'm Anita Vogel. Now back to Watters World.
Despite the media and Democrats constantly attacking President Trump for basically everything he does these days, the barrage of bad news is not affecting voters. A recent Fox News poll shows President Trump now has a 46% job approval rating. That's up about 10 points from a year ago. But will that high approval rating help President Trump win re-election? Joining me now, the president's daughter-in-law and senior advisor for the Trump 2020 campaign, Laura Trump. Laura, welcome to Watters World.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's about time,
It is
Jesse.
about time. I blame my staff.
You can always blame them. But.
That's true, and I always do. All right, so the president now about 46%. It's pretty good considering the attacks that he's weathered over the last 2 years. Do you guys pay attention to numbers like that or not?
If we paid attention to numbers, then we would have understood that Donald Trump had a 1% chance on Election Day to actually win in 2016. I have never believed polls, Jesse. I saw throughout the campaign in 2016 how they were constantly wrong. I saw even leading up to the midterms how I don't think they were completely accurate as we went into the midterms. So we, of course, see them and we take note. But
do you guys have internal polling that you look at that differs from
we absolutely
mainstream media polling a little bit?
And it is different.
It is different.
It is very different. And I think what we've seen with polls is that people are not always truthful when it comes to supporting President Trump.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's because the media makes you feel like there's something wrong with you or it's a bad thing to support a president who will go down in history as one of the greatest our country has ever had.
Yeah, because they always say that, you know, Republican voters, especially Donald Trump voters, they don't talk to the exit polling people. They hang up the phone when, Reuters calls and asks them what they think of the president. And maybe people don't want to say to their neighbor, oh, yeah, I'm voting for President Trump for re-election. Do you think it's because the media has conditioned Americans to feel guilty about supporting this president because they think he's so controversial?
Well, I think that's a definite component of it. I think that the media makes you feel like there's something wrong with you if you have very vocal support for this president. You see the way they talk about Trump supporters at Trump rallies and the negative things that get said about them. You see people going out to have a nice dinner that get accosted by people, thanks to people like Maxine Waters, telling you that you should get up in their face and kick them when they're down, like Eric Holder. I think that there is some really scary stuff that's being said, and it really does make it hard sometimes to voice your support for a great president.
Someone threw a drink in my face on election night after I was a little rowdy when the president won Wisconsin and Michigan. It was a free drink. That's how I took it.
There you go.
All right, so re-election. Harris Faulkner just interviewed the president and asked about some Republicans potentially primarying him. Here's what he had to say.
I'm going to bring up John Kasich, and I'm going to bring up Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, because they say they may run against you in 2020.
I hope so. I think I have the greatest base in the history of politics. I have people that I love and that love me, frankly. That includes a lot of women. I got a tremendous percentage of women last time. Remember, I wasn't going to get women. I wasn't going to.
I interviewed some of the women for Trump.
Oh, yes. I got women that they're the greatest. And I have tremendous women support.
We'll get to the women in a second, but do you believe the president really wants Flake and Kasich to primary him?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that, well, what a waste of money. This is a president who is easily going to win re-election, Jesse. I think based on the great job that he's doing, he is his best commercial because everything he does every day that is so beneficial for people across this country is the reason that I think he's going to win by more in 2020 than he even did in 2016.
Yeah, I think it's a fantasy if those two try to primary him. It's a fool's errand. So he's saying that he has tremendous female support. He won a majority of white women in 2016. But overall, you keep hearing about these suburban college-educated female voters that he really needs to have come out for him more enthusiastically than they did in 2016. Are you guys paying attention to that voting group?
No, certainly. We pay attention to all voting groups because every person in this country has the right to one vote, and we want everyone to get out there and vote.
Do you have a strategy to really turn out those women?
Well, I think, again, the president is going to do the best job of that himself. And I think a lot of it is reminding women what this president has accomplished in this country, why it's a better future for them, why there are more opportunities for them. Look at female unemployment in this country, the lowest it's been in like 60 years or something. I'm sure we'll get to lowest in all time at some point. It's a safer country thanks to Donald Trump. It's a better country for women with children in thanks to Donald Trump. So
safety and prosperity.
I mean,
those are the things you're hitting with women.
When you have more money in your pocket, when it's a better world for your child out there, you want to see that continue. You don't want to go back the other way.
More money in your purse.
In your wallet or your purse, however you want to go.
That's right. Okay. Melania Trump was just on Hannity. Obviously, he's got to go on Hannity. It's the only show to go on. And she was asked about some of the attacks that she faces through the media. I think worse than any other first lady that I've ever seen. I'm only 40, though, so it's not that big of a length. So this is what she said and how she responded.
I would say the opportunists who are using my name or my family name to advance themselves, from comedians to journalists to performers, book writers.
Does it hurt?
It doesn't hurt. The problem is they writing the history, and it's not correct.
So if you're in entertainment or if you're in the media and you attack President Trump, instant headline, instant click, instant notoriety. Do you think she has a point about that?
She's 100% correct. First of all, we have a first lady who is so classy and so wonderful and does such a great job and is such a great representation of this country, of the White House, of everything a first lady should be. The fact, Jesse, that she is not on every cover of every magazine like other first ladies have been is crazy to me. She's so gorgeous. She's so elegant, so fashionable. But that tells you really all you need to know. And she's 100% right. You know, if it weren't for President Donald Trump, what the heck would everybody be talking about out there? Thanks to him, he's keeping so many companies, so many journalists in business.
That's true.
We can say thank you to the president for that.
That's true. I hear Eric's not changing any diapers. Is that true?
Every now and again. Every now and again.
Now and again. All right. I tell him to change one once in a while.
Will do.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, Diamond and Silk, everybody. Stick around.
Why doesn't Mike Pompeo care right now? Are the pathetic deflections that we just heard when he appeared on Fox and Friends, is that a patriot speaking or a wannabe dictator's butt boy? I'm dead serious. I'm asking, are these the words of a patriot?
Whoa. Mika did apologize a few days later, but is it too little, too late? Here with their reaction, Diamond and Silk on set. It must be my lucky day.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
All right, so what do you think about Mika? It sounds like she almost planned to say that. It didn't seem like it rolled off the tip of her tongue.
Well, you know, she feels like she can get away with anything. That's how the liberals, they act like they can get away with saying anything.
Well, they usually do.
Yeah.
And they do. But she's not fired. They haven't reprimanded her. And yes, her apology is a little too late.
Imagine if I said butt boy.
Ooh. You up out of here.
Goodbye, Waters World. This would be your last appearance.
You're absolutely right. And it lets me know also that they've been doing this type of talk
behind closed doors anyway, because you are what you think.
That's
so
true.
It just came right out through her tongue.
Wow, then I must be a hamburger because I'm starving.
Oh, right,
all right.
now.
We have to say, 10 years ago, Kevin Hart said what he said about gay people, and he had to leave hosting the Oscars. And she didn't leave anything. It just seems like a little bit of a double standard. It really depends who you are as opposed to what you can get away with. But let's move on.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, your favorite Democrat, had this to say. Let's roll it.
It's really unfortunate that the president has decided that he would shut down government. He's taking full responsibility for the Trump shutdown. Perhaps he doesn't understand people need their paychecks. Maybe that's not the life he leads.
People need their crumbs, right?
Okay, you know that's what she said, but here's
That's
the
what she
deal.
said.
People are thriving in this country,
Yeah.
so the paycheck is not the problem.
Right.
The problem is security.
That's
we
right.
want our borders secured, and if you can live behind your wall, Miss Nancy Pelosi, then why are you having a problem with funding the wall
That's
for
right.
the United States of America?
That's
I'm tired of them funding illegal aliens. I'm tired of them funding sanctuary cities. It's time to fund the wall so that you can keep the American people safe.
And I'm getting a little bit sick and tired of these individuals that us taxpayers, we pay them, we're actually their boss, for them to go and be in government to work for we the American people. If they don't want to work for we the American people, then shut the government down.
You know what I'm thinking? When they do shut it down, Nancy probably still gets paid. Right?
Absolutely.
I bet she still gets a paycheck.
Yeah. Behind her vine, y'all, yes, she's still going to get a paycheck.
Yes.
Absolutely. But it's going to call them to the table. It's going to force them to work for the people. They ran on, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
That's right.
You need to do your job, and if you can't do your job, goodbye.
And stop allowing them to hoodwink us. You know, they ran on changing or doing something or redoing something with health care because they gave us Obamacare and have done absolutely nothing about it. This is exactly what the Democrats do. They like to hoodwink people, make you think they're going to do this for you when they do nothing but fill you a bill of empty promises.
They all talk and no action.
That's right.
All right. Speaking of, Maxine Waters, a lot of talk from her recently. This, again, is about her favorite topic, impeachment. Go ahead.
I believe that this president is dangerous. I think he has undermined our democracy. I think he's aligned himself with the enemy, with Putin. He loves dictators. And I believe that he certainly qualifies for impeachment.
It's called presidential harassment. The president of your country is doing a great job, but he's being harassed. It's presidential harassment.
Presidential harassment.
That's
You think
exactly-
that's what this is, this impeachment deal?
That's exactly what it is.
That's right.
You know, there's a slush fund up there with Congress where they're paying off people that have been, these congressmen that has been accused of sexual harassment or sexual misconduct.
That's right.
They're paying them off with our tax dollars.
Yes, they
What
are.
about that slush fund? Why don't Maxine Waters go
Yes.
and harass those people? We want to see the names of these congressmen and women or whoever who was
right.
accused of things. We
Who
need
did
to
we
see
pay?
that. I'm tired of them talking about impeach. Impeach them for what?
That's
for,
right.
For giving us a booming economy?
Yeah,
That's why you want to impeach them?
there's no money for the wall, but there's money to pay off all the people that Congress harassed.
That's right. And it's our taxpayers' money that's doing it.
Right.
We can use that money to fund the wall.
And what you going to impeach him on? And impeach him for?
Yes.
If we're going to impeach anybody, let's start with her, because we went to her district.
We went to her
It is
district.
a hot mess.
That's right.
All right, Dominant Silk in studio. Chit Chat Tour launching next year. Don't miss it.
Yes. Don't miss it, sweetie.
All right, up next, a body language expert breaks down what really happened at the Trump-Pelosi-Schumer meeting. Stay tuned. Public. The president telling Schumer he would own a government shutdown if that's what it took to get his wall.
The last time, Chuck, you shut it down.
No.
And then you opened
20
it up very
times.
quickly. And
20 times.
I don't want to do what you did.
20 times
Chuck,
you have called for, I will shut down the government if I don't get my wall. None of us have said.
You want to know something?
You've said
okay,
it.
you want to put that on
You
my...
said it.
I'll take it.
Okay, good.
You know what I'll say? Yes. If we don't get what we want, one way or the other, whether it's through you, through a military, through anything you want to call, I will shut down the government.
Okay, fair
absolutely.
enough.
And I
We
am
disagree.
proud, and I'll
We
tell you
disagree.
what, I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck.
A lot going on right there, particularly with the body language. So expert Tanya Ryman is here to help us out. Hey, Tanya.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. All right, let's take a look and slow this down of this interaction between Crying Chuck and the president. All right, what are we seeing here?
Okay, so obviously we know President Trump loves to use his hands, and he uses them to frame his words. So when you're watching him, okay, here's the interesting thing. You see how he just adjusted his jacket?
Yes.
This is the one time that you see him get nervous. When he adjusts his jacket, that's his little bit of discomfort coming through. But here comes the New York. Okay, so he leans forward, gets closer to Schumer, and then the only other pacifying gesture he does is he holds his hand like this. So when you hold your hand like this and you see Schumer's doing the same thing, this is something that builds comfort, and it also puts a blockage between the two of us.
It's like a soothing.
Right. Not only that.
What's he doing here? Now he's, with the finger.
That's you and Nancy, right? And then again, the stop sign. This is what he's famous for. Like, it's not your turn to talk, it's my turn to talk. Listen to what I'm saying. So a lot's been made also about Schumer with his posture. He's a slouch to begin with. He just has terrible posture. When he got serious, though, he lifted himself back up. And then went right back into that position. So I love the fact that Trump was so into, getting into his face.
He's right up in Chuck's face.
There was
now,
no doubt.
also, there was some interesting kind of go between Nancy Pelosi and the president. Let's watch that.
You know, Nancy's in a situation where it's not easy for her to talk right now, and I understand that, and I fully understand that. We're going to have a good discussion, and we're going to see what happens. But we have to have border security.
Mr. President, please don't characterize the strength that I bring to this meeting as the leader of the House Democrats who just won a big victory.
Elections have consequences, Mr. President.
Let me just say.
That's right, and that's why the country is doing so well.
All right, so the president starts off, and let's look at what he's doing here. He starts off kind of talking for Nancy.
Okay, look at the steeple.
Yes, what is the steeple when the president does that?
This is his go-to position, but a steeple is typically considered to be one of power. So this is his go-to posture.
Got it.
What was interesting is you see Nancy, she gets very offended, and she don't speak for me. This is a woman, no matter you like her or dislike her, she is not afraid of Trump.
She's doing a lot of aggressive hand motions.
She is not afraid. She's like, don't speak for me. She came in to have a meeting and gets frustrated because you see Schumer looking at everybody who's in the crowd. You see Trump talking to the crowd. And Pence just sitting there. So Pelosi is getting annoyed because she's like, I want to have a dialogue. And that's when she starts to turn around and talk to other people.
Okay, let's look at Pence here. I mean, what is Pence doing the whole time just like this?
Yeah.
What is that? I mean, he's just like, get me out of here.
Here's the interesting thing. If you watch him, not only did he lean back in his chair, which is a distancing thing. We do that.
So he doesn't want any part of this.
Right. But not only that, he also sways back and forth depending who he agrees with at any given moment.
He might be agreeing with Nancy?
He might just not be agreeing with Trump. There's a difference. Doesn't mean he's agreeing with Nancy. It means